Sacrificial Solace is the third full-length album from Noroth, a Seattle, Washington-based death metal band, and one that focuses very much on groove. This is a traditional death metal band in spirit, but also a much more modern version of that, which is all groove-oriented. It is a little bit hardcore influenced, very straightforward in every way, and there's a couple of kind of points of contention that I have with some of their discography in the sense that all of the records are very short. I think some of their background is in hardcore or punk or sludge. And this one is 22 minutes long. It is kind of presented as a full length, and that means there are very few songs to examine here. It is an EP's length from my point of view, an MLP, if you will. And there's only so many things to really talk about here because, well, I guess we'll get right to one and just see what this sounds like. So when this band showed up with their demo tape, I think I gave a brief review of it, or not a demo tape, but their first album, It Dwells Among Us, and they had this sort of cyanide feeling to it. It was kind of around the time where bands like Fetid and other Pacific Northwest bands were focusing on this sound, and this was a pretty decent example of it. And at that time, we were in kind of a heyday of a lot of these bands showing up and having something new to do with it, and I saw this as a group with potential. It's good to see bands like this in the Pacific Northwest, and the people involved seemed to know what they were doing. And the second record took a couple of chances. It did some things a little bit different. It brought in an electronic artist to do the intro and the outro. It seemed like they were making a bigger, better album. And now they've changed the lineup to a new drummer now, and that means that they've changed the way that the band works. They've gone back to the more simpler approach of their first record, and in most ways that it just kind of feels like a devolution of what they were building up previous. Now, it on the other hand, it brings in some crust influences. It brings in a little bit of a grinding feeling to some of these songs. So if you're already a fan of nearby groups like Deconsecration, you'll sort of get where this is coming from. You'll hear that kind of muddier sound, and there are points on this record where they kind of hit like a little bit of like a Secrecy-esque level of guttural, grave-like death metal with some bolt thrower influence, maybe made more clear on one or two songs. Yeah, otherwise, there are some filler songs that are very simple, kind of, maybe they work in a live setting. I don't know if they work so much on record. When you've only got 22 minutes to make an impression, and the really simple four count mid-paced pieces that have a breakdown at the end, I don't know that it's really just not all that entertaining at this point. And I don't think whether you're the most advanced and informed death metal listener or you're just a kind of a beginner to it, either way, I don't think there are some songs in here that are just kind of not necessarily flops, but they just don't do much. And so that's not a big point of contention. I'm always there for kind of the basic old school death metal standard. I think they get pretty close to it here. I think there needs to be a couple more bells and whistles, some quicker change ups, just a little bit of pace, something to break up this record. But it is just 22 minutes, and for what they present in that form, it's not like any of it is outrageously bad, but none of it is outrageously good either. It's sort of an above average showing, but kind of a just above average record. And I think they did a little bit better with Harbinger, even if that had its own flaws here and there. And so this kind of feels like treading water in a lot of ways. And that's not a bad place to be if you're Noroth. It's not a bad band in any sense. So a little bit lukewarm for me in terms of its general reception, but I think that there's a broad audience for this kind of thing, and a really straightforward death metal record that has a strong kind of style to it will certainly appeal to a lot of people. So check it out if you will, if that's your kind of thing, and see what you think. Otherwise, go ahead and read my review if you feel like it. The album releases today on June 7th.